Hi, I'm John J. Murphy, and I welcome you to the Change Mastery Show with my co-host, Dr. Pat. Together, we invite you to think differently about change, not as something to fear or resist, but as a powerful opportunity for growth, empowerment, joy, and life mastery. My vision? To help millions of people shift from victimhood to leadership, from ego to spirit, and from hesitation and resistance to flow. This is an opportunity for you to get out of your own way and experience life with more courage, confidence, humility, and higher purpose. Get ready. The Change Mastery Show starts now.
Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Pat. It's such a real honor and so much fun to be doing this series with John. And the reason I say that is because when you have someone who has lived, breathed, is in the flow of this conversation and in the flow of what needs to happen, then you just want to sit up, pay a little bit of attention. If you think you got to take a few notes, please feel free. But remember, you can always go back and listen and watch this whatever time you want. John, today, I have to tell you, I know the work you've done over the years, consultant, organizational entrepreneur, author, athlete, you name it, you've been there. But part of it is you've seen a lot. You've seen what the steps are. You've seen how you can walk either across a river or assume the river is not as deep as it really is. And then what? But part of this is helping people understand the dynamic nature of suffering, cause, who we are, what we hold on to, and what really could set us free. So today, this show in particular, assumptions, the root cause to great suffering. This is a show and a conversation that many people don't have. And yet, there's so many different ways to look at it from many perspectives, especially from the research work on psychological contracts. It is a major factor in what causes people to live for decades with resentment. Your books, whether it's Beyond Doubt, whether you're talking and doing a keynote, whether you're out there doing the sport that I love, or maybe the sport that you love, we are tapped on the shoulder every day with an opportunity to assume something. This is a great topic. I want to ask you before we really get into it. This is so important to so many people, but to you in particular, why did this show up? Why is this one, or how does this one help people point to a path of freedom?
Well, that's a deep question, and I appreciate that, Dr. Pat, because this goes back 60 years plus for me. And we're raised a certain way, and we're trained to believe certain things. And almost all of that's based on assumptions that you're going to be successful if you go to college and you get a good job, and then you'll make a lot of money and you can raise a family. And these are all paradigms. And I remember I was 23 years old, working in a corporate office in Chicago with a degree from Notre Dame, and feeling just absolutely bored. I mean, I couldn't wait to get out of work. It was like, what? And I started to really question, like, I did everything, I played by the rules. I did everything I was supposed to. And I feel like a fish out of water. I'm miserable in a sense. And fortunately for me, I didn't just throw in the towel and say, well, I'll just stick with it for the rest of my life and, get the watch when I retire, and then I'll do something fun. Nope. I was like, I can't live my life this way. This is like prison. And that's just me because I was entrepreneurial as a kid. You give me a rake and I'll go rake someone's yard and make money, or a snow shovel. I was just constantly looking for ways to earn money and have some fun. So I started at a pretty young age to really question these paradigms, these mental boxes that I was raised with. And then I started to see it with everyone else. We all have programming. I'll use that term. We're all programmed to believe certain things and to think a certain way. And it's all essentially based on the past. So, for example, if I say to you, um, are you American? And you say, well, yeah, yeah. And if I say to you, how do you know that? Well, from the past. If I hold up an apple and I say, what's this? And you say, well, that's an apple. And I say, how do you know that? Well, because I learned that was an apple when I was 5, or whatever. So we're going through life through programming that happened in some cases 50, 60 years ago. And if we don't question and challenge that programming, we're getting in our own way. We're limiting ourselves because you've used the term before, infinite possibilities and
Yeah.
opportunities.
Hmm.
And I believe that I mean, we have no idea just how much we can do if we stop believing we can't.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you a major assumption that's popping up everywhere for me and the people I talk to, my clients. And, I think this is a lot of people that I work with are listening to this show. I said, you got to listen to this show. And so the conversation is, I don't know what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to be out of a job. I'm assuming that AI is going to replace. I mean, I could go on. You understand. I have
Mhm.
never seen a single entity thing technology, right? Outside of the iPod, of course, that has raised so many conversations about assumptions.
Mhm.
In such a short period of time. Now, clearly, right, John, there we've had historic events in life, horrible, horrible things. But this is something that is, can, correct me if I'm wrong, relatively new in the mainstream. Those of us that have been working with AI for about a decade now, badly, but trying, we weren't surprised. We all watched The Terminator. But now, I actually had a client say to me, listening to this show, I'm not going to mention your name, it's okay, but you can call in 1-800-930-2819. I feel like I'm in a Terminator movie. And I was like, well, who are you? Are you John Connor? Are you Sarah Connor? They said, no. And the answer they said shocked me. All the assumptions led to, I feel like I am the defeated. And I thought, wow. And the assumption is, I'm never going to have the job of my life. My career is over. Now, that's one thing. But there are many assumptions along the way. Everything from going to the deli and asking them to cut that deli meat thin, never checking it and assuming they're going to do it. And then you get home and everybody around the table is like, I hate my roast beef. So let's take this because it is a deep conversation. But we are doing this every minute of every day sometimes, aren't we? Right?
But that's right. In fact, we're making tens of thousands of choices a day. Some people think, you make 10 or 12 choices a day. No, you choose what to eat, you choose, what to wear. No, we're making tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands even choices every day because every time we say a word, we choose it. We choose who to speak to, we choose when to speak and when not to speak. So we are constantly making choices. So one of the first things we can do is stop and just shut up for a minute, so to speak, and think about every choice we make before we just start jumping off cliffs. And if we stop long enough and contemplate some of these things and we uncover the assumptions, which are almost always there, we know very, very, very little, if anything, with fact. We don't even know if we're a body, right? Well, we think we are, and we think we're in a certain place. Scientifically, in terms of quantum physics, we don't even know that. This is where science and ancient spiritual laws come together. So there's practically, I quote Socrates a lot, and the wisdom is essentially knowing, true wisdom is knowing we don't know anything
I
for
love it.
certainty,
Yeah.
and this is one of the greatest minds, in history. So it's almost arrogant to think we have it all figured out. And when we start getting scared about AI, about getting our jobs replaced, about anything, if we're afraid of anything, it's based on assumption. We're assuming something's going to go wrong in the future. I'm going to lose my job. AI is going to replace me. The Terminator's going to come and destroy everything. It's all assumption and it's negative. So what we have to do is uncover the negative programming we've had since we were 5, because most of our programming comes by the age of 6. That's science. So if we're downloaded with all these viruses, so to speak, mental viruses by the age of 6, and then we go through life afraid of things, thinking, well, to be successful, I have to do certain things, dress a certain way, speak a certain way, do this, don't do that. We're programmed. And it takes a pretty bold and almost radical thinker to say, no, I'm not going to believe that. I'm not going to believe that I have to be this religion to go to heaven. I'm just not going to believe that. And I was raised Catholic, and even those isms, Catholicism, Buddhism, Hinduism, all of the isms are assumptions, every one of them, and they're categorized to be the right way to be, and this is the way to be. And when we are bold enough to say that doesn't work for me, I'm spirit. I'm not even physical body. I am spirit, temporarily just using this vehicle to, have some fun, get some things done, and make the world a better place. But when we start assuming things like we don't even die. We just transform. Now, those are beliefs, and you could argue those are assumptions, but I've got to tell you, Dr. Pat, I feel a lot more at ease going through life, not fearing death,
Yeah.
not fearing anything, quite honestly, because I know fear is an illusion and it's all based on assumptions. If I'm going to assume anything, and we all have to make assumptions, it's just a matter of fact, I'm going to assume the best. And that also comes down to trust in a higher power and trust in good over evil, so to speak. Trust that we as a humankind are going to figure this out. And if you also believe in universal laws like karma, cause and effect, everything, all debts get paid, everything balances out, and you can't have night without day. So everything's in a balance, good and evil, so to speak. When you start to just step away from all of that and say, well, all this negative programming we continue to get through the media and through, conversations we have with bitter, critical people, they're all over the place, you know that. Um, I'm not going to just jump in and say, oh yeah, that's true, that's right, and then just catastrophize it. No, I upset a lot of people because I don't see it that way.
Yeah, I
They
do
want to
too.
come, yeah,
We upset a lot of people.
yeah, because they want you to agree with them that the sky is falling, and it's the Chicken Little thing or whatever.
It's
And
hard for me to do that, John. I actually painful. I don't know what it is about it, and I haven't been able to navigate it. That's why it's so important to hear what you're saying about this today, because there are many people that is painful for them to be around that, to commit. What's the term? Aunt May said, commiserate. I'm going with you. I'm going with my sisters to commiserate. I'm like, what? What is that? But I know what it is, right?
yeah,
Kibitzing, whatever you want to call it. Honestly, it was a day for the girls to just get out. Um, but you have often described assumptions as the root cause of suffering, and now I'm hearing why, right? Let's talk about this a little bit further because you're a business coach. You work with companies. You walk in there, and I can only imagine the level of assumptions about you and what you're going to do or not do. But how is it that assumptions, how are they the root cause of this deep suffering that people experience?
Well, yeah, so yeah, you're absolutely right. I use these tools when I go into businesses all the time. And so we usually start with what they think is a problem. Let's just pretend for a minute it's customer service. We got a lot of complaints from customers. First of all, they think that's the problem. They assume the problem is the customer's complaining a lot. That's not the problem. That's the symptom. It's like having a headache. The problem isn't you have a headache. The problem is whatever's causing the headache is the problem. The symptom is the headache. So if you don't get the difference, you're going to take aspirin and the headache's going to go away for maybe like a few hours, and then you're going to take another aspirin. And I use that metaphor because now you're screwing up your stomach or your liver or whatever. You're trying to solve what you think is a problem and you're creating more. And businesses are doing this all the time. So let's add more customer service people or AI in India, and then then we get lower cost labor, and the customer's going to keep on calling, complaining because you haven't gotten to root cause. So when you get to root cause in business, it's usually things like policy or the lack of standardization and procedures. And if you go even deeper than that, it's the fifth level of why we call it typically. You get to ignorance. Almost every problem on the planet, when you get to the fifth level why, you ask why 5 levels deep. It's called the 5 whys. You get to we don't know any better. We assume that this is the right policy to have, or we assume we don't need a policy when we do. We assume that people will figure out how to do it. We don't need to standardize the process. We assume we don't really need to measure it because it's obvious if we're doing it right or wrong. When in fact, great businesses measure everything important, have very standardized processes, have policies that actually work and make a difference. And so when you start to really get down to why are we struggling with anything, whether it's personal, I've had health issues, why I keep exercising and I keep changing my diet and I just can't seem to lose that 10 pounds I want to lose. It's because you're assuming that those two factors, diet and exercise, are all it takes. Nope. It takes a lot more than that. And in fact, even the scientists now are like, well, that diet we had 10 years ago, that actually doesn't work and it screws up other things. And even the form of exercise you use, you've got aerobic and anaerobic exercises, and anaerobic is much better for you, and you only have to do it 12 minutes a day, 3 days a week. That's shocking. Wait a minute, John, did you just say I only have to exercise 12 minutes a day, 3 days a week? That's that's it? Yep. And I weigh the same weight that I did in my freshman year in college.
Mm.
And because when you challenge assumptions and you learn that it's a combination of factors. So diet and exercise, of course, are important, but the right diet and the right form of exercise and the right mindset, this is key. I'll say this, and we talked about this on the last show,
Hmm.
is if I'm trying to lose 10 pounds because I think there's something wrong with me, that's a barrier to losing 10 pounds because I'm putting out a frequency, a vibration of negativity. I weigh too much and people look at me in a certain whatever they do. No, the shift is you target a weight that you want, and every day of your life you feel and you believe and you see yourself attaining that goal. That's positive versus negative. And there are all kinds of scientific studies now too that say the most important thing you can do to be successful, to give you a choice, is it to think more positive
Hmm.
or delete more negative? And the science says it's delete the negative. Because people say think positive, you got this. You can not if you're dragging a bunch of emotional baggage around with you. When
Yeah.
you start deleting these doubts, these, I'm too old, I'm too young, I don't have the enough education. I don't have a college degree. The list goes on. But you start just getting rid of that stuff. You say, you know what? I got talent. I got potential. I can find even if I lose my job. Here's another thing about being a consultant. I've been running my practice for 37 years. I lose my job every year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's true.
It's like, so what? Because that's the nature of it. It's like when you go to college, you're not going to be there forever.
No.
You go and you do what you're supposed to do and you move on. When you start to realize that's life, we're all meant to move along and grow, and you start to find ways to do that every day. And you challenge assumptions by surrounding yourself with bright people. That's why I love podcasts like this, Dr. Pat, because when you start, I've grown up like a self-help junkie, reading books, audios, seminars. Now we have podcasts and webinars and online courses. I'm hungry to learn from the smartest people on the planet, some of whom aren't even alive anymore because we have
Yeah.
libraries, right?
Yeah.
So if you really want to get out of your own way, tune out of some of the nonsense that surrounds us and tune into brilliance.
Yeah. One of the things we're talking about here is that we look at assumptions bad. They're bad. We bad. We're bad. But, at a personal level, we're making assumptions, right? We think we're making assumptions about, I think I'm making an assumption about you. Like, okay, I'm getting ready to do a move. And so I get to tow I get tow, my vehicle gets to put on a carrier. So this is the weirdest thing. And I was getting ready for the show today with you. And I'm making assumptions. And I made an assumption about myself and about the vehicle. The rule is you can put personal items on the car, in your big carrier, but you can't go above the window.
Hmm.
Now, what assumption did you think I made about that? You can put 100 pounds in, uh, and here I am. Okay, is it 100 pounds? How are they going to know? They're going to take everything. But the assumption I made about that was, oh, they don't want you to go above the window because, oh, somebody's going to take your stuff. When in fact, that may not be the assumption at all. The
Mhm.
assumption might be, you better not go above the window because I'm driving your car up to the high level. And if you go above the window, I can't see what I'm doing. But it's so easy to go, uh-oh, don't go above the window. You can put 100 pounds in there. Clearly, I have more than 100 pounds. I'll pay $1 a pound for more than that. But look at the assumption that I've been carrying. And Linda and I just had this conversation. I said, nobody told us that we can't do that because somebody's going to steal our car. They've never said that. They said your car's going to be perfectly safe. So where did we get that from?
Yep. Yeah, well, we're blessed with imagination. The problem is sometimes we imagine things that aren't so great, and we're not even aware of the negative programming we're surrounded with. But you use the term commiserate. People just get together and they complain and criticize politics, the healthcare system, the education system, the environment. There's just and I've said this before on the show. Whatever we see in the world is a reflection of what's going on inside us. So if we see chaos, or conflict, we're conflicted.
Mm.
And that's in your face. People are like, wait a minute, it's not me. It's all that stuff going on out there.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
it is. So let me ask you this question. So this is always this conversation about us personal level, and we make assumptions about things, but we also get in this space like the Terminator person that talked to me, that assumptions are bad. But are they? Are assumptions bad? See, we're so quick to go to good bad, right?
Hmm.
See how quickly I went to that. Now I'm telling you, I was very clear when I packed this car up because to come to get the car today, I would like put a straight edge to make sure that I wasn't above the window level, right?
Yeah.
But then I said it didn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me because even if you're not above the window level, people can see what you got in your car if they really wanted to. It's like, I mean, this became a whole story. And we look, what do we assume? We assume our government, we assume our jobs, we assume dot, dot, dot. We assume if I buy that smart little phone that I actually don't know how to use, but you're giving it to me free, I'm going to be happy.
Yeah. Well, you're absolutely right that, we're assuming all the time, and we don't really have a choice because we don't have perfect information and perfect knowledge. So we have to make assumptions. And the question of whether they're good or not is the great experiment, so to speak, of life. But I like to tell this quick story because it
Sure.
helps us understand assumptions a little better. And so there's this farmer, and one day one of his horses runs off, and the neighbors all say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. What, how unfortunate." And the farmer says, "Maybe." And a couple days later, the horse actually comes back, and it brings with it two wild horses. And the neighbors all go, "Oh my, how fortunate. How lucky you are. What good fortune." Farmer says, "Maybe." Well, a few days later from there, the farmer's son's out trying to break one of the wild horses and he falls off and breaks his arm. Oh, and the neighbors are like, "Oh, that I'm so sorry. How unfortunate." And farmer says, "Maybe." And then the army comes into town a week later, recruiting young men for the army. And the son gets passed up because he has a broken arm. And of course, the neighbors are like, "Wow, how fortunate! How fortunate are you?" And you know what the farmer said? "Maybe." So contemplation, and I use this word all the time, Dr. Pat. It's a close cousin to meditation, but people struggle with meditation a lot. I don't know how to just slow down and stop and just clear my head. So contemplation is something you can do all day long. And all it means is that you're suspending judgment. So before you respond to anything, gets back to the choices we make, every word, what we say, what we don't say. We contemplate. So we just step back and we say, hmm. And what I do is I wonder, is what you're saying opinion or fact? Is it an assumption or do you know it for absolute certainty? Guess what? It's almost always an opinion's assumption. So we assume that, the horse running off is bad. We don't know. So when you just start saying, and this is a challenge for everybody here because I challenge people with this all the time. Somebody delivers some news to you, and whether it's good or bad, whatever it is, you just think maybe, maybe not. Let me process this. Let me think about it. And what you discover is that it dissipates all kinds of arguments and debates. Because when you push back, if opinion against opinion is conflict, and if you enjoy debate, meaning you enjoy conflict, and people do, debate all you want. I'm not comfortable with that. I don't want to sit there, and I grew up with two parents who I both passed now that I love will love forever and the lessons they taught me. But they debated every night at the dinner table with seven kids sitting around. I'm a one of seven. And it was just it felt to me as a child as violent. Now they were just debating politics and religion and schooling and welfare and all kinds of stuff. But I didn't like it. Intuitively, it was like, I'm uncomfortable with this. And I remember just at a fairly young age going, who's right? These are my parents. And well, don't one of them have to be right? I mean, they're smart, right? They know everything. And then, of course, in life, we learn no one knows everything. And so even our parents, our professors in school, our teachers, all these people who want to give us advice, I like to say, pay attention to who you pay attention to,
Mm.
because a lot of people are just given really bad advice. Their intentions are not bad. Oh, you should do this, or you shouldn't do that. The shoulds and shouldn'ts. Nope. I'll contemplate that, but I refuse personally to use the word should or shouldn't. I just don't. I don't. They're not in my vocabulary. It's like the word hate. I don't use the word hate. So, should and shouldn't is telling somebody what to do. I don't. I'll offer suggestions. So you might consider finding another job. You might consider an alternative to this or that. Or here's an article you might want to read, or a study that's been done on health related things or mindfulness or whatever.
Mm.
Here, so I am not telling anybody to do anything. I'm not telling people what to believe or value. And that's a big difference because I don't know if I'm right.
Yeah.
You know, I I never say anything I'm not willing to do myself. I say things that I've experienced and they've been very helpful to me in my life. But I'm very cautious about assumptions. And I think
Yeah.
I've told you this story before. I'll
Yeah.
tell it again real quick. Is when I was
Hmm.
17, I was told I could never play football again, which was a big deal to me at the time. And we just won the state championship in Michigan, and I was excited to be recruited and all this stuff. And the doctors, the surgeons are telling me after a week in the hospital and multiple surgeries, 10 hours of surgery, reconstructing my foot, which I ran through a lawnmower, said, your football's, I'm sorry, son, your football's over.
Wow.
And I thought that was truth for a while until I read a story about Rocky Blyer, who was told the same thing and went on to win 4 Super Bowls. And that challenged that assumption. And I went on to play at Notre Dame. My point being is this bright, brilliant surgeon was wrong. And if I would have believed him, that assumption, I'm not sure, maybe I would have gone through the rest of my life feeling like a victim, feeling like, how stupid could you be, John? Oh my God, you ruined your life, with an accident. Instead, I learned that it's real important to pay attention to who you pay attention to and to challenge assumptions, especially if they're painful, and grow from it. There's also something, can I share my screen? Can I
Sure,
do that?
Emily.
I'm, I'm going to pull up a share.
Awesome.
Okay. It says send request. Okay. So now I want to share this. Can you see this?
It's coming up. There it is. Mm-hmm.
Okay. It should be a PowerPoint.
Yeah, you got it.
You, you can see it?
Yes.
All right.
Perfect.
So I want listeners to look at this exercise. You got 20 seconds to figure it out. Move one ring to form 2 separate lines, straight lines of 4 rings. Now, I use this exercise in keynotes and workshops, and I have for many years now. And it's very rare, if anybody's struggling with this, it's very rare for practically anyone in the room to get it.
Yeah. And you give them 20 seconds, it says.
Yep. And really, it shouldn't take more than 3 or 4 seconds. But the reason people struggle with it is because of assumptions. They're in a paradigm or a box, and they don't even know it. This is life. We're going through life blind. We're in paradigms all the time that we don't even recognize. Beliefs, And we're not even aware that these are beliefs, and they're limiting beliefs in many ways. So, this is a model I developed decades ago that I think is very important. Can you see the model?
It's
Well, what you,
perfect. I
yeah,
yeah, that's
so what
great.
you so what you see across the top line, manage behavior to get results. Go to the gym and exercise. Eat the certain diet. Go to school and get educated. These manage these behaviors and you're going to be successful. Oh, and by the way, if you do it with a positive attitude, you're going to be even more successful. So be positive. So let's go back to that exercise for a minute. And I say to you, be positive. You can do this. Come on, you got this. And people go, I don't think it's possible. So I'm not saying positive attitude isn't important. What I'm saying is that there's more to it than that. So beneath that dotted line is this whole world of perception. Maybe, maybe not. Assumptions, interpretations, paradigms, and beliefs. We go through life looking at the world, looking at ourselves in the world, looking at our families, our nationality, our religions, our races. Everything is a box. And so the real question for all of us is what assumptions am I making about myself, my job, my age, my education, my limitations? Oh, I can't do that. What assumptions are we making? And the thing is, often we don't even know we're making them. So mindfulness is really about getting down, and
Yeah.
change mastery is about getting down to that level. So now here's something Einstein said. He said the significant problems we face today cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were at when we created them. What? We created them? No, we didn't. No, no, my problems are caused by something else. I have nothing to do with it. Wrong. You have everything to do with it. And that's pretty deep because we don't realize that we're energy frequencies and we draw like energy into our lives.
Yeah.
So at the very
That's a deep quote there. That statement by Einstein. That baffles a lot of people, don't you find?
sure it does because it basically says we have to think at a whole different level. You know, Einstein also said this. He said everything is energy. Match your frequency to the frequency of that which you desire, and you cannot help but get it. It's as simple as that. This isn't philosophy, this is physics. That's a direct quote from Einstein as well. So, what frequency am I at? And if I'm assuming the worst, I'm assuming negative, I'm going through life with grief and shame and doubt and pride and anger and fear. Those are all ego frequencies. I'm just drawing more of the same. When I learned to really shift out of that into a world of possibility, infinite opportunities, things like that, and I'm going to land on my feet. I'm going to assume the best. It's a whole different world. So let me help you everybody out with the exercise just a little bit, and I'll show you the solution. And now when I do this, people look at it and go, "Well, that's not right. You said four. You said four rings." I go, "Yeah, that's four. What, you don't see the fourth? Here, let me help. It's right there on top of the center ring. Four and four. What? Why didn't you get that? Because you were in a two-dimensional paradigm and the solution's three-dimensional. Dr. Pat, I just share this because, let me end the share here a minute.
It's a great example though, because it's a and you're right about that. You're right about that. Can you imagine if you're in the room, what's going on inside of you with that exercise, especially if that's your opener? Can you imagine?
Oh,
You and I know what it's like to introduce an exercise like that, and you're in a room and you just can't get it. You're in a room with people that are paid to get things like that right.
oh yeah.
Oh,
Dr. Pat, I've used this exercise with the CEOs of some of the biggest companies in the country and the world, nuclear engineers, I mean, brilliant people, PhDs. I mean, and it's just rare that somebody says, I
mm,
got it. And oftentimes when they say, I got it, they don't got it. They've got a different solution that
yeah.
doesn't actually work. So, and I'm not trying to make anyone feel stupid. That's the last thing I want to do. It's that we're blinded. And so one of the most important things we can do to master change and to live a healthier, happier, more prosperous life is to be aware of the boxes we're in and just challenge them and open up to alternatives. I like to say the third right answer. So another tool I use in business is the third right answer. We are arguing over option A and option B, and you get into that Republican, Democrat kind of mindset, one team against another team, your school against my school. It's just a common paradigm. What's the third right answer? And teams are like, well, what do you mean? I go, look, we're going to take both of your solutions and put them on the side, and we're going to come up with a third. What? It's forcing them out of the boxes they're in without even knowing they're in boxes. And guess what? We have option A, B, and C. Guess which one we usually go with? And the answer is D. We don't even go. So, but the point is, it breaks the ice. It really breaks us out of these blind spots that we have. And so like we started with the show, I am super mindful of assumptions. And I'd say that's step one for anybody
Yeah.
is to just step back. The next time you're in a conversation with somebody, especially if it's conflictive in any way or commiserating over this or that, just listen and just try to understand where are these people coming from? What assumptions are they making? What perceptions do they have? Um, what alternatives might exist? And I mean, it could be as simple as I was in the gym a while back, and a guy that used to play football, he teases me a lot. He's like almost 10 years older than me, and he's really struggling with some things. And he said something like, "Man, getting old sucks. Getting old isn't easy," or something like that. And I listened, and I just said, "I kind of like it. I like that I'm still here. I like I like that I'm getting older. What's my alternative? Check out." So again, it's just a simple little way to be thoughtful about these, because I don't want to believe that getting old sucks. What
Yeah.
what if I believe that?
Oh man, I can't. I no way. It
I
just,
mean,
and yet there are people that live and breathe every day. And guess what? They're 30 years old. And I'm telling you, there's so much out there, John. And I really would love for you to talk to this because, I was teased by my the woman that created our high school reunion. And basically what she said to me, she said, "Girlfriend, you're really lucky." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Can you imagine you, high school, social media? Are you kidding me?" And I just looked at her because I knew what she was saying, right? And I said, "What do you think? Would I be here now?" She said, "No, you'd be locked up." And so we had this conversation. We knew each other very well, but I had to ask her, "What did you mean?" Right? Because with that comment, I could go like a million places. But you're right. So every day there is more information and more information and more information. I went somewhere. I don't know where I went. I went somewhere. Yes, I do. I went to the doctor. I had to go to the doctor, get blood work. Went to get blood work. I was shocked, man. I don't take my phone out. There's something about taking that cell phone out, and I think Linda's did go off. Everybody was on their phone. I watched people working at the hospital not even watching where they're going.
hmm yeah.
Not- And I know they have to because that's the system.
Well, again, this is where I'd say they think they
They
have to.
have to.
That's an assumption.
Exactly. Exactly. And here we are because we need to look at and uncover and challenge these assumptions. How do we do that? I mean, you showed us the perfect way that we do it so naturally. But this idea of, and I like what you said, being mindful. I'm like you. The whole should thing is just, I don't, the other part of it is when you give somebody a should, you're telling them what to do, and you better take responsibility for what that means. And then you get mad if they don't do what you wanted them to do. You're like, oh, you should go get that car. You should go get that big car.
Yeah.
And then they
Yeah.
don't get the car. Why didn't you get the car that I told you to get? Well, because you're kind of not the boss of me to get the car.
Hmm. Well, that's again, it's that funny story about the farmer
Oh,
with
yeah.
maybe. So somebody says, anything to you, and if you don't even have to say it out loud, but if you just think, oh, maybe not, we'll see. When you say things like "we'll see," you're not making a decision or an assumption, really. You're just saying, well, we'll see, right? And I got to say this, even like every statement you hear someone say, what I do is I listen and I think deeper than the statement to the assumption underneath the statement. So it's like anybody says anything. Well, that because you said it, that's the system, and they have to. Immediately, I think beneath that to the assumptions, and it's like the assumption is they think they have to. You
Yeah.
didn't do it, and I don't do it.
Yeah.
I keep my phone with me, but I'm not glued to it. And if I work for a boss who won't leave me alone for 5 minutes and I've got to be on my phone constantly or whatever that system looks like, I'd ask myself, do I want that? And if I do, and I think it's great and it makes me feel important, and I'm constantly proving myself, and people are watching me and they're blabbing away on the phone, and they're assuming they have to do that to be important, to look good. Everybody can see how famous or important I am, and it's all assumption, right? Because what people are really thinking is you're really annoying. Can't you take that call outside? And my goodness, this woman came and sat down just down the aisle from me on a plane recently. And she was and everybody around was just going, can't she shut that off? But she's just blabbing away on the phone, not even using like a Bluetooth. She's got the phone on speaker.
Speaker. No.
And it's almost like trying to show off, like, look how important I'm, or it's just total unawareness that you're in a
Unaware.
public place, right?
Yeah.
So if you could look below the assumptions there, you might discover, man, she's got some real deep issues to deal with, whatever they might be. You don't even know. They could be some kind of mental illness or something, because it was pretty wild. But the point is if that's contemplation. I talked about
Yes.
contemplation earlier. Contemplation is just not making a judgment, a rash judgment, a quick judgment. You'll still come to conclusion at some point, but it's more like I'm just going to turn it over a little bit to see if maybe there's something I don't understand. Maybe there is a deeper a deeper issue. And you start to really gain more empathy for people around you. Everyone's got issues. Everybody's got programming. Everybody's living their lives based on memory in the past
Mm.
and who they think they are. Um, and you start to just look at it from a whole different perspective. I like to use this metaphor. Imagine you're in an auditorium watching a theater production, or you're watching a movie on the big screen, and you're just watching it, and you can see the drama, you can see the egos, you can see the conflict, you can see the assumptions, but you're not in it. You're just watching it. And I do this all the time with people when I do team breakouts and workshops and things like this. I just stand and watch them, and I can see the assumptions they're making. I can see the source of the debate, and but I let them do it long enough to see if they can work it out. And then if necessary, I'll step in and I'll say, why don't you consider this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Or, what's option C or something like that. Um, and they're like, oh, so I mean, that's the idea is when you really start to master the understanding that everything's, underneath everything are assumptions, good and bad. In science, we have what we call hypothesis testing. And hypothesis testing is we form a hypothesis, which is an assumption, and we test it. If we change these factors, are we going to get a different result? And what will that result be? So we're measuring inputs and outputs. So it's designed experiment is what it's referred to, a design of
Mm.
experiments. You probably know that, and
I love
it's
those.
yeah, it's purposeful,
Yeah.
purposeful testing. But again, stepping back from all of that, I think life for all of us to some extent is a great experiment. And if we're mindful and contemplative and wise enough to challenge these underlying assumptions, we uncover limitations that we can overcome. And I remember in my 20s saying, you know what, I don't want to have a job where somebody else is writing my job description.
Mm.
I don't want that. Other people are like, well, that's just how it works. And I might say, maybe, maybe not. So I wrote my own job description in the 1980s, and I'm still living it today, and I'm rewriting it every year to some
Yeah.
extent. And another exercise I'll share real quick is that
Please.
think about your vision. This is to the audience here. Think about your vision of where you are 10 years from now. And I used to teach a course called MVP. It's a sports term, most valuable player. But in this case, the course was mission, vision, and principles. What's your mission in life? What's your personal mission statement? And most people assume, oh, I don't have one. Those are for businesses. They have business, and I don't even understand what their mission statement is. It's all these words on a plaque on the wall, and we don't even seem to do it. But I love Walt Disney's mission statement. Back in the day, he said, my mission is to use my imagination to bring happiness to millions. One line, using a gift for a purpose. That's essentially a mission statement. A vision statement is what does that look like 5, 10 years from now? In his case, millions of people benefiting from his use of his imagination and creativity. It doesn't say how. It just says that's my mission is to give what I have. My vision is to reach millions of people. And then Disney has very core principles, the piece. So my challenge to the audience is, where do you see yourself in 10 years from now? And what are you assuming? I did this, Dr. Pat, when I was in my 30s. And my vision 10 years out was to be on a world stage, an award-winning author, helping millions of people and organizations perform at a higher level. That's pretty bold.
Yeah.
Like,
It's good. That's a good one
like,
though.
yeah, like
That
John,
that
you're
suits
dreaming.
me.
You're dreaming. You don't have the education for that. You don't have the skills, the experience. So I assume I do. If I'm going to assume anything, I'm going big. I don't, why not? There's another assumption. Why not?
I
So
love the why
yeah,
not though, John, because see, why not? Those two words, that's like a super gateway. That's like a portal, like a time portal to freedom.
yeah. Well, and the thing about why not, so I wrote the book Entrepreneur, and the first
Yeah.
three we talked about that 12
Yeah.
years ago. But the first three chapters, chapter one was what if? What if I take this risk? Chapter two was why do it? Chapter three was why not?
Yep.
Now, a lot of people look at those are contemplative questions. There's no answer to that except what you come up with. So what if I try something different in my life? Could be a relationship, a job, a career, whatever. Why do it? What are the reasons why I should? What's the big why? And then why not? What are the risks? What could go wrong? But a lot of people think of those in immediately a negative way. What if something goes wrong? The
Oh,
what if is, what if I lose my job? What if AI replaces me? Okay, then what am I going to do? They never even get past the what if. It's just chapter one and I'm done. You know, the sky's falling. So I know you feel this way too. I don't believe the sky is falling.
no, I don't. And I just went through that exercise, by the way. I did a refresher on your book and I just went through it and I made a major life change. I did it. I did what if. And this had to do with where I was going to live, where we were going to set up the new company. What if? What if the company were on the East Coast, Pat? What if? I went through it and I'm on a plane on Sunday and I am moving to the East Coast and I did this in a 3-week period. My
Wow.
everything here is going to be in storage. I got very clear. But why not? Why
Sure.
not? And I
Yeah.
didn't get a lot of stuff with the why not. Why
Yeah.
not?
Yeah.
It was like I was waiting, like, oh, don't do it because la 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 la. But
Yeah.
see, assumptions crush dreams sometimes. The greatest dream that ever got crushed was around 1990 when they repealed the psychological contract at work. I assumed if I worked here 30 years, you're going to give me the pension. You're going to keep me forever. I'm going to work hard. And then you're going to give me what I thought you were going to give me, but actually never told you what you were going to give it to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think we're over
Well,
that one.
like I said, life's a great experiment. Moving to the East Coast is just part of that experiment for you.
Yep.
Um, no one can predict the future with any great detail. The sun's probably going to come up tomorrow, I think. But I mean, in terms of where we're all going, who knows? But if you're going to assume anything, try assuming the best. You know what? Moving to the East
Exactly.
Coast is going to be great. And if things don't go that well at first, I'll learn something from it. And if you think back to all of the mistakes, the adversities that you faced in your life, and you think about what you learned from it, you might not take any of those away. Say, would you do it? Would you do it differently? Would you do it over? And most people say, most very successful people go, no, because the lessons gained from that
Yeah.
are invaluable.
Yeah. I got it here. Let me leave you with this, and I'd like to hear your closing message. I got to ask the question, what's the first thing you're going to do when you get there? And I said, oh my God, I'm going to get a pizza. They were like, what? I said, I'm going to get a pizza. I'm going to go get a pizza from Dominic's.
Okay.
And they're like, you got to be kidding me. I said, no, I live in the Pacific Northwest. I don't eat Hawaiian pizza. And I said, there's nothing wrong with it if people love that. But for me, I like that oil to run down that full fat cheese and crispy dough and pepperoni that burns all the way down. And they laughed. But I am going to do that, John.
Yeah.
Look, how do we find out? Let's connect with people. We've talked about the book and a lot of things. What's the best way to find out more and connect with you?
Sure. Yeah. JohnJMurphy.org is my website. From there, you can go to my YouTube channel, author John J. Murphy, and there's over 200 self-help tips
Hmm.
on my YouTube channel. Highly recommend that. And then, of course, Facebook and LinkedIn. I'm all over those. John J. Murphy, author John J. Murphy. LinkedIn is John J. Murphy Mystic.
Perfect.
So Mystic
Thank
of
you.
Management. Yep, you betcha.
John, this was awesome. Emily, thank you. And for those of you out there, this is a big one. Going into the holidays, please play this back. Please watch it again because there are things that you will gain from this that truly might just put a smile on your face. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Change Mastery Show with John J. Murphy, an opportunity to uncover, explore, and experience the path of transformation and illumination. Join Dr. Pat and me on the second Wednesday of every month at 11 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. Never miss an episode. Subscribe, like, and share with your friends. Connect with me on social media. And for questions, comments, or to explore my books and services, visit johnjmurphy.org. Until next time, be the change you want to see in the world.